things are spammy, when you don't consider who you're speaking to, when you're trying to be everything to everyone, when you're speaking about yourself and not about your client's challenges, when you're not being a good listener and doing active listening and understanding what they're struggling with and how you can speak to that. If you're not being really clear about who your client is and what their challenges are and speaking to those challenges, if you're doing that, you're creating something that's really worthwhile and useful to them. If you offer that to them, you're starting a conversation that is grounded in goodwill because you've genuinely taken the time and energy to create something that they need or want, and that is the foundation of your relationship.
Better, faster, stronger.
Packaging design should seduce, inform, and even save the planet. I'm Hernán Braberman, and this is BRANDERMAN, the podcast where I talk with experts to uncover what it actually takes to make a positive impact on consumers, the market, and society. Warning: keep this podcast out of the reach of close-minded marketers and designers. Before the interview, let me introduce my design agency.
Brands with purpose. Human, agile, honest brands that leave no one indifferent. Tridimage creates and revitalizes brands to imagine and shape the future. Tridimage, the branding and packaging design agency for bold brands.
Today I had the pleasure of conversing with Ellis Maldari, the founder of Kaffeen, an online platform dedicated to assisting design agencies in scaling their businesses. Kaffeen achieves this through accessible, cost-effective, and result-oriented resources. Since its establishment, Kaffeen has successfully aided over 900 agencies globally, furnishing them with the tools for proficient lead generation and streamlined automation. In this episode, Charlotte imparts valuable insights into the significance of lead generation systems and the potential for automation to enhance effectiveness. We delve into the prevalent marketing and sales challenges encountered by design agencies, and Charlotte shares her perspective on the mantra of seeking completion, not perfection. Today with me, Charlotte Ellis Maldari. Charlotte, each of us is a container of ideas, projects, and dreams. However, we can't read the label when we are inside the jar. What do you think your label says, or what would you like it to say?
Open with care, bursting with energy. I think would be the warning of my jar.
Building a brand is like a journey. It starts with defining where we are and asking ourselves where we want to go. What was the path that led you from studying fashion communication and marketing to carving out the marketing department at a fast-growing brand design agency, to then founding Kaffeen to help design agencies create and implement marketing activities that get results?
I have been obsessed with brand for as long as I can remember. I've been fascinated by the pull that certain aesthetic experiences and considered brand presentation had upon me. I was at school where we wore uniform. So we didn't really have much freedom of expression in terms of the brands that we wore. But trainers were one thing during sports classes. And as long as I can remember, I've been obsessed with Nike and what that stands for. And I was fascinated by why a tick, or as I later learned, the wings of the goddess Nike, held such a fascination for me, held such an allure. But even I remember traveling on Virgin Atlantic once when I was younger and seeing the care pack that they put together for the flight, the kind of thing where you get the socks and the earplugs and the eye mask. It had such humor, it had such irreverent statements on them that were really in line with the Virgin brand experience across so many different touch points that Virgin operates within now. And I remember thinking how clever that they've used it as a way to communicate their brand tone of voice and reinforce that and make everything, all of those touch points, part of the experience. I didn't have any of that vocab for that at that stage, but I remember like, why am I attracted to these earplugs? I went to university and I was partially in the business school and partially in the School of Design. And I was sitting alongside pure marketing people for some of it. And I was sitting alongside designers for some of it. And I really got this blend of the two worlds. I also gate crashed most of the graphic design lectures with one of my housemates who was on graphic design. And by that point, I've realized I was intrinsically drawn to about brand. I applied for a job at a new business agency called Rainmaker. They were asking for people who had a degree and were passionate about brand and marketing and wanted to help other agencies to grow. I had about 6 different aliases. And at any given moment, I was calling on behalf, like cold calling on behalf of agencies, but having very highly qualified conversations with decision makers who are potentially going to hire those agencies. I don't think that you can do marketing or new business for creative agencies unless you genuinely understand and are fascinated and curious about the power of marketing and brand. And that's a really important theme because that's really what I founded Kaffeen based on. After leaving that place, I had a completely unrelated interlude where I moved to South Korea and then I moved to Italy for a while. And then I moved back to London and took a job at Brand Opus. And I was their first marketing person. They were on a very fast ascent, but they didn't have any strategy in place in terms of marketing and new business at the time. And I was brought in and I was itching to get going with new business. And I remember the founder saying to me, no, this isn't a new business job. This is a marketing job. We want you to raise the visibility. I was like, didn't you see my CV? All I've done today is new business. And I thought, like, isn't that a good thing? Isn't that why you do marketing, is to get new business? And it was like, he said, we've tried new business. We're not entirely sure that new business is the right approach for a design agency. We think raising the visibility is more important at this stage. We want to try that out. So I was like, okay, I have no idea how to do that, but I am very willing to give it a bash. And so began 5 years at Brand Opus. Just the most phenomenal experience being there through such an incredibly fast period of growth. I moved to tech startup for a while. I learned a lot, particularly around the theme of, to quote Mark Zuckerberg, moving fast and breaking things. They were all about just doing things and seeing if they work and progressing forward with those that did and discarding those that didn't. And I loved that attitude. But I continued to get approached by agencies. I had a big track record with winning design effectiveness awards in the UK. By the DBA, Design Business Association. They run these really very sophisticated awards. They're very hard to win, very hard to pull together, require a lot of discipline and rigor. And I just built a process over several years where I kind of knew how to pull one together that would win. Made me realize that there were aspects of what you need to raise the profile of an agency and attract clients and how that plugged in directly with new business. So this kind of concept of visibility and new business and doing that in an efficient way that didn't require a lot of human input in the long term, didn't require a lot of money and energy, basically. And that's how I founded Kaffeen. And that is the way we work with the majority of our clients, from one person in their Mac through to global networks of over 250 people. We help them to set up streamlined lead generation systems that make them visible to and grow their reputation with and ultimately attract in the kind of clients that they want to be working with. So that's what we do at Kaffeen.
What do you understand about selling and marketing design services that agency owners don't understand?
It's not that I think I know so much more than them. I've got a very objective view that the majority of agencies don't necessarily have. I've got a view of what's working for other agencies and what isn't. I've got a view of what's working for other industries and what isn't. I know what's coming up next and what is becoming less effective in my particular discipline, which is lead generation. And that's what makes the Kaffeen perspective unique, offering them DIY resources that they're able to use to build their own lead generation systems. This enables us to have that objective kind of helicopter perspective that makes us much more valuable to our clients in the long run.
Why do you consider that sales and marketing always ends up at the bottom of the list of agency owners?
Creative agencies are normally founded by creative people. That person is likely left another agency because they want more creative freedom, not because they want to be doing new business and HR and finance. Creative people tend to consider themselves to be the diametric opposite of a salesperson, of new business person. And this to me is ironic because if you are in a creative agency that works with commercial brands, ultimately your output is to generate more sales for your client. And so it feels a bit weird to me because actually I think they are salespeople. That is what they're doing. And often they don't agree with me on that point. But yeah, when it comes to sales conversations, knocking on doors, cold calling, any of that stuff, they squirm and they try and get out of it. The problem is that it never goes away unless you've got some source of prospective clients other than you doing your own outbound new business. Then things are going to go south pretty quickly and you either have to fold and go back to freelance or working with another agency, or you have to seriously consider your business model entirely if you're not willing to address new business.
Isn't sales and selling spammy?
Things are spammy when you don't consider who you're speaking to, when you're trying to be everything to everyone, when you're speaking about yourself and not about your client's challenges, when you're not being a good listener and doing active listening and understanding what they're struggling with and how you can speak to that. If you're not being really clear about who your client is and what their challenges are and speaking to those challenges, if you're doing that, you're creating something that's really worthwhile and useful to them. If you offer that to them, you're starting a conversation that is grounded in goodwill because you've genuinely taken the time and energy to create something that they need or want. And that is the foundation of your relationship.
How do you approach lead generation strategies for your clients? Can you briefly describe the lead generation system you teach at Kaffeen?
We help our clients to really define who they want to focus on for the purposes of new business over the next quarter. And then we help them to build a list of those people. And we do it through the format of LinkedIn, actually, using Sales Navigator. It's an incredibly powerful tool. And we've got loads of incredible ways of helping to build a very qualified list that represents at scale the kind of clients who are most likely to hire them, who are going to be the best culture and chemistry fit for this particular agency. Then we speak to some of those people, both within their existing client pool and their prospective client pool, and we listen to them. We listen to them to find out what the challenges they're facing are. And if they're an existing client of this agency that I'm working with, then we listen to them to understand what the point of difference is about this agency, about the way they're working with them. We combine those two things to pull together a proposition of something we are going to create that will, as I've spoken to before, create a sense of goodwill, something that speaks to the challenges that those clients are facing, that they need to hear more information from, that they want to understand from a very knowledgeable and trustworthy source. And our knowledge about what makes our agency different helps us to position them in that way. And then we distribute that to the list just previously spoken about. And the process of that allows us to build an audience within my agency client CRM and nurture that prospect through the process with a series of content, be it via email or podcast or whatever is the right fit, to the point at which they book a chemistry call. And really, that is the entire process that we take our clients through.
What are some of the key levers that return the best results for the design agency looking to grow?
Once you've done that groundwork, once you've had the discipline to understand which niches you can credibly target, and a really clear understanding of what your ICA, your ideal client customer avatar is within that industry, and listen to them and created something that is of value to them. Once you've got those aspects in place, you can really use almost any lever within the marketing spectrum in order to reach those clients with that process and draw them into your world. It sounds so simple, but for the vast proportion of agencies, like both large and small, I'm talking very large agencies, quite frequently don't have a lead generation strategy established, and certainly not one that is consistent and which is automated, which delivers good results.
Creatives often see sales as the opposite of creativity. Yet as leaders, a substantial part of our role involves managing new business and operations. What are agency prospects actually interested in?
Just like any human, they want to feel like they're listened to and they want to feel like their needs are being addressed. And all too often, when you haven't done that foundational stage, it sounds like you're just shouting at somebody about what you want to talk about. So I'd say what is sector agnostic and industry agnostic is that common desire to have their challenges intuited and addressed and feel understood.
The mantra seek completion, not perfection, has strongly resonated with me. In your experience, have you observed a tendency among agency owners to procrastinate due to an inclination towards perfectionism?
Oh gosh, yes. I think it's true of a lot of industries, but I think it's particularly true within the creative industries because what we do could be so subjectively judged. It's not maths. You can't view creative output objectively. And so there's always the risk of defensiveness about being judged and fear about not creating the optimum result. Most people will get to a point where they could say, okay, there'll always be room for improvement, but this is enough. This is enough for what we need it to be right now. And sometimes that's very hard to admit, but I think it's very important if you want to be commercially successful.
Is it possible to automate and systemize the new business process?
Oh my goodness, yes. When you've done that foundational stuff, when you've really taken the time to understand who you're targeting and what their challenges are and create something that is important to, that speaks to that audience, that makes them feel heard, then yeah, you can automate it in almost any output. If you were in any way in the hope of growing your revenue, growing the size of your agency and the kind of clients that you work with, then I'd say you would be a fool to avoid automating aspects of your new business.
In your lead generation system, how far does marketing go and where does sales begin?
Everything before a chemistry call is lead generation. And you may have wrapped up under the term sales, but is also marketing. It's everything around first making them aware of you, then making them know, like, and trust you to the point at which they hop on a call. It's not necessarily sales. It's not necessarily marketing. And broadly speaking, in relation to your previous question, everything before the chemistry call can be automated. Everything from the chemistry call onwards, much more challenging to automate because it's much more of a one-to-one relationship.
What is the worst marketing crime that you have ever seen or perhaps committed?
When you just come across as tone deaf because you're not willing to be specific about who you're wanting to target and you come across as arrogant. So an example would be a client of mine may say, oh, we're not willing to focus on a specific niche. We're just going to send out a blank message to a blanket range of sectors and job roles, and we'll be able to reach more people that way and we'll be able to get higher results. But they have the opposite effect because if they're really generic, they try and be everything to everyone. You're nothing to anybody and people see straight through it. Decision makers within the marketing sphere get so many approaches from cold, so many more than we as B2B business owners get, which might feel impossible. But it's so many more. Another example of that outside of on LinkedIn, that might be that person who reaches out and says, hey, Hernan, I see we share some connections in common, so I thought it would be good to connect. What? Versus, hey, Hernan, I've written a book, Client Magnet, based on my experience with X and X agency. I thought you might like a copy. Either way, it's good to be connected. Something that speaks to the industry they're in, speaks to the challenges they're facing, is generous in the sense that it is free of charge and is otherwise available at a larger cost. But another way, the number of inconsistently sent newsletters that I've seen. Imagine somebody coming to you, one of your service providers, and say, hey, this month we've been out for drinks at X. We took people on holiday to this place for a week. We completed this piece of work for another one of your colleagues within the marketing industry. Aren't we great? Goodbye. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you write something that speaks to the challenges that those clients are facing rather than, or, presents a case study from the format of here's 5 things you can learn from this other piece of work we did for one of your peers. Just make it feel a little bit more applicable. Make it feel less self-centered and therefore less arrogant. And you know what the sad thing is? Agencies that I see do this, they're not doing it intentionally. They're trying to start doing marketing But unfortunately, in the process of doing that, they're just going to come across as self-centered and arrogant. And it makes me so sad when I see those kind of newsletters. So like the amount of effort it takes to write that kind of thing, you just think a fraction of that effort would be required to create something that is way more applicable to that audience and which is more likely to be received with thanks and to generate goodwill. That stands you in good stead when you move forward to a working relationship.
Charlotte, I have a proposal for you. Let's play a game. As you are aware, a table tennis table is often found on creative studios. Here's how it works. I will ask you a series of quick questions and you will need to choose between two concepts. Are you ready for BRANDERMAN ping pong?
Yeah, sure.
I'm a marketer or I'm a sales and marketing coach?
Sales and marketing coach.
Creative strategy or strategic creativity?
Strategy, creativity.
Focus groups or gut feelings?
Oh, gut feelings.
A big established agency or a boutique agency?
Am I allowed to say depends?
Why?
Well, it doesn't matter the size of the agency. It works best when there's somebody who has their remit is dedicated to getting this stuff in place and making it work. Often big agencies, you're more likely to find somebody who is more of a marketing assistant or a marketing manager who has the space and capacity to implement something. Whereas when I'm working with a smaller agency, even though they'll see much greater impact of putting this stuff in place, it tends to be a founder or managing director who I'm working with, and they have less capacity to actually implement, and therefore the number of people who get through to completion are fewer.
Conceptualization or execution?
Execution always.
Remote work or face-to-face work?
Remote work for many different reasons. but you've probably already established by this point the number of countries I've lived in over my lifetime. I'm very much a global citizen, and I love the diversity of geographical areas I can work in. I'm not just talking worldwide. I'm originally from Yorkshire in the north of England, and that has become much more of a creative powerhouse over the past decade. And even though I live in London, I'm so proud of what's been achieved by agencies up there. And I'm so proud to work with many agencies in the UK outside of London. And I wouldn't be able to do that face to face. So the more people I work with, the better for many different reasons for everybody.
A collaboration with another consultant or agency that you would like to do?
Oh gosh, there are some companies that I really respect. And one, lots of times I actually lose clients to them. And a company called The Future Factory. They are a new business agency for creative agencies, and I highly respect them. I was their client when I was at Brand Opus, and I've not lost that admiration in spite of the fact we kind of operate in the same niche within the industry.
And finally, great designers are born or great designers are made?
So this is a really interesting question. I'm just going to take designer out and make that creative instead. I've got a 5-year-old daughter. She recently started school. She's curious, she's creative, she's considerate, but she's nonconformist, I would say. And I was so scared when she went to school that she'd have that difference knocked out of her, because schools have a certain way of forcing people to conform. So I'd say a lot of us are born creatives and a lot of us get it knocked out of us. The challenge is preserving it and keeping hold of it. That is the foundation of every amazing creative person and amazing designer. I think that is the challenge, and it often gets knocked out of us on the journey through life to childhood. Yeah. So it's not necessarily about born or being created. I think it's more about preserving it.
Great. Looking ahead, what trends do you anticipate shaping the future of our industry?
I can speak from marketing and new business perspective, and that is more and more smaller players within the industry will be able to challenge the bigger, more established agencies. And that means, if you're small and you identify as having that ambition, move quickly. A lot of tools are already there at your disposal. And if you're a bigger agency and are nervous about what that means for you, now's the time to tool up and be focusing on how you make yourself more future-proof and valuable to your clients. We're on more of an equal footing, regardless of where we've come from, when we started, how many people we are. So we can't rest on our laurels around long-term reputation anymore. We need to think about how we're actively safeguarding for the future.
If you could just take a pill and learn any subject, anything, what would it be?
I am fascinated with creating the most simplest and elegant solution to convert a client. And I wish I could just take a pill and absorb everybody who's been successful's experience so far, so I can come up with the process that is the closest to perfect. Somebody once said to me, you'll always pay for your knowledge. You either pay very quickly to a consultant or to an advisor to learn from their experience very quickly and implement that for your business, or you learn through experience and time. You can't eliminate the payment. You're either paying through experience and time, or you're paying cash directly to somebody to learn and apply that to your business sooner rather than later.
What is something that people don't know about you that if they did, they will be surprised?
That I was in the army at university and that I'm military qualified and I have a crack shot. I was in the shooting squad.
That's targeting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Charlotte, what is your next adventure?
We're about to start the second cohort of a program we call the Lead Flow Sprint. That is where we work with a group of up to 20 clients to help them to implement a lead generation process over the period of 2 months. So that's from zero to having a fully implemented lead generation process. That's helping you to reach out to thousands of perfectly targeted prospects per year. We've just done the first cohort. We completed at the end of October, and we are working on optimizing it and setting the next cohort off in January. We've been backed by Innovate UK, which is part of the way the government hands out funding in the UK to help innovation, because they know that the creative industries, particularly design, they are a huge export for the UK. But creative agency leaders aren't necessarily the best at selling their services, and they don't necessarily price themselves correctly. And so we've been commissioned by Innovate UK to educate and support with correcting that. A very macro level, a micro level, we're helping small to medium-sized enterprises increase their revenue and become more profitable. The knowledge that you can access, the speed at which you can move, and the power you can feel through that process is quite mind-blowing. I absolutely love working with those kind of companies, the ones who know they need to sort this. It's business critical to be generating more leads. And as a result, when we implement this, they see an impact on their businesses. And that's what I find the most fulfilling, is helping design to reach more people and thus make all experiences and products we consume a better fit and more enjoyable. So that's my contribution to this industry. If that sounds like something that's of interest to you, I really encourage you to go check it out at kaffeen.club/LFS. So if you're curious about it, very happy to jump on a call with anyone listening and chat through whether we think you are a good fit or not, and perhaps even start to work with you from January onwards.
Charlotte, thank you for this fantastic conversation and for helping designers with actionable, affordable resources that make us visible and desirable to our dream clients. Thank you for inspiring us all to seek completion, not perfection.
Oh, thank you. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Such well-considered questions. And as a podcast host myself, I'm in awe at how you've made me really think. I've got some learning to do from you as well, Hernán. So thank you for having me.
I hope you have enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. You can check the episode notes for all the relevant links. I also invite you to follow me on Instagram and on my website, branderman.design. Follow the podcast in your favorite app so you don't miss the next episode of Branderman, the podcast where we try to uncover how to make a positive impact on consumers, the market, and society through package design.